James, before we dig into the affairs of the Redstone family, both literally and figuratively, how would you categorize this book? Because it's not like Den of Thieves or Bloodsport, not really a political or a financial novel. There's King Lear in it, there's Succession, there's TMZ. How do you categorize it?
I think overall it is a family drama. It's an intergenerational drama. It certainly has been compared to Succession, although I have to say this really goes beyond Succession. It kind of started out as the Me Too movement meets the corporate boardroom, but then we realized it's really a much bigger story than that.
So let's start with the patriarch, Sumner Redstone. Where is he from and how did he make his billions?
Well, Sumner Redstone was one of the last of the great old-fashioned Hollywood moguls, and he's incredibly brilliant, aggressive, competitive. He started with 2 drive-in movie theaters in the outskirts of Boston, and he ended up owning CBS, the Paramount Studio, the cable channels, MTV, Nickelodeon, Comedy Central. He was certainly one, if not the biggest moguls of his day.
Now let's talk a little bit about Sumner's family. He has a son and a daughter named Shari. Shari, I guess you could say, plays the Cordelia role in this tale. What is Sumner's relationship to Shari?
Complicated, in a word. And one of the things I found so fascinating about this is the very complex relationship between an extremely successful, wealthy, competitive father and a daughter. You know, there's lots written about fathers and sons. There's a lot written about mothers and sons, but the father and daughter relationship here is very, I think, deep and complex. And you see a mix of competition, of sexism, absolutely, although he drove his son away. So you can't say he was any kinder to his son than his daughter. But she, in the end, is, I think, the survivor in this particular tale.
And Sumner's fatal flaw, if you will, is women. And 2 of them in particular take control of them. Holland and Herzer are their last names. How does a billionaire come under the spell of these 2 women?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, wouldn't you think that a billionaire of all people would have the guardrails around him, the lawyers, the advisors, the financial advisors to protect him? And yet you see everybody kind of turns into a grifter around someone that wealthy. Everybody's just trying to get their piece. The women insinuate themselves through romantic and affectionate means, and then they move in and they stay. And pretty soon they're in the will, they're in the estate plan, they're in the trust. Then he's selling all his CBS stock. One afternoon, he sold all of his CBS stock and wired them $90 million one afternoon when they wouldn't let anyone call him in that period. It is an astonishing tale of the ability of these women to take advantage of him. And it's a sad story that I think, you know, is it elder abuse? That did surface in this. But I think anyone who has struggled with, you know, a fading parent will identify with this story.
And there were more women as well, flight attendants and actresses. How did he juggle all these women and manage the company as well?
Well, I think he was spending more time with the women than he was managing the company. I mean, one of the reasons his chief executives, Les Moonves at CBS and Philippe Dauman at then Viacom, liked him is that he let them do whatever they wanted. And meanwhile, he was spending millions and millions of dollars on these women. You know, cultures of company, I think, start at the top. And you can see in the book some pretty abusive behavior. But in his case, it was accompanied by so much money that none of these women really ever complained. And even now, getting them to talk about it for us as authors was very difficult.
And you mentioned Les Moonves. He was the CEO of CBS, and he was undone by the Me Too movement. Deservedly so, right? Why don't you tell Les's story?
Well, Les Moonves was also at the pinnacle of the media entertainment world. He was, you know, named by the Hollywood Reporter the most important person in media and entertainment. And he was phenomenally successful running CBS. He had the so-called golden gut for shows. But he had this dark secret. And you see in the story, one of the, you know, mysteries of all this is he decided to go to war against Shari Redstone and the Redstone family to try to make sure they didn't, you know, meddle in his running of CBS. And you would think, why on earth would anyone do that when he had these dark secrets, these, you know, Me Too issues of his own in the past? And you can see the texts and the emails which we got access to. He agonizes, he struggles. There's no easy way out for him. But either way, I mean, the way he chose, which was to go to war, proved fatal when all this surfaced.
And Shari's victory over Les Moonves really is the positive narrative in the book. And her business acumen really improves over the course of the book. Is she the victor in the book?
I think so. I mean, I think she's kind of the hero of the story. I mean, she's drawn into this drama against her will because these women are taking over her father's life and seizing control of the empire. Something I don't think people realize is how close they came to gaining control of it. She's forced into this. She didn't really want to do it, but as she stayed with it, she started to enjoy it. And I think today she says she likes being the chairperson of Paramount Global, which is what the company is now called. But first she had to deal with the women, then she had to deal with the hostile Philippe Doulan, then she had to deal with the betrayal and revolt by Les Moonves. I mean, I tip my hat to her. She had incredible stamina and determination, which, maybe she got it from her father.
Finally, is there a moral in this book about very immoral people? Because most of these characters are waiting around for an old man to die.
Yes, and I think there's more than one moral, and readers can draw their own conclusions, but one obvious one is, if money does not buy happiness. It does not buy peace of mind. And perhaps the more money you have, the more elusive those qualities can be.
Thanks, Todd, for coming on and talking about it.
Sure, my pleasure.